Hello everyone, welcome. It is Wednesday, it's 4:30 p.m. Central Time here in Chicago. Welcome to Office Hours. This is your chance to learn about updates from the last week and Intune ConfigMgr and more, and also your chance to ask us questions on pretty much any topic related to Microsoft infrastructure. Andrew, good sir, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. All right, welcome back everyone. Lovely Wednesday, and fall is starting to find its way here. Getting cold.
Yes, it is. We got a little spoiled today, but I don't think those days are numbered, as they say.
I can assure you that it's a difference not having too much hair. Starting to wear a hat, even like whoop, right
I
now.
believe it. You got to get that beard grown back out too.
I went a little bit too much. I felt last week like, nope, I have it. I looked like a crazy scientist there for a while.
I think you mean to say experienced. You look like you were experienced and well read.
Yes, I looked like what's his name in Back to the Future?
Oh,
Doctor
Doc.
Yeah, Doc. Yeah, everybody know who he is. Forgot his real name. Embarrassing. Anyhow,
Doc Brown.
there we are. All right.
All right, we're off to a good start.
Fantastic. Let's switch topic there. What happened in the last 7 days in our little world?
We're here to talk a little bit about tech stuff, right? So I've got a few things that I came across that I would like to share. As always,
Shall
a few
I
things.
Share your screen?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, I'm doing it.
As always, a few things from the community and a couple of things from Microsoft as well. In no particular order, I've got a list of those things that I came across. And the first one that I've got here is a post from Damien, who always has some, we've showcased several of Damien's posts here. He's always got some cool stuff going on. And he did a post on managing BIOS settings on Intel NUC devices with PowerShell. This was especially appropriate for me because I just recently dug my NUC out of a box so that I could get it back into the home lab. So any way that we can automate the configuration of these things for me is a good thing, and it seemed to gain some traction as well. I saw Mike Terrell talking about it a little bit. So really cool post here. Basically just using this iSetup config Win64 executable along with some text files for configuration and a little bit of PowerShell, and you are able to set BIOS parameters on your Intel NUC. Pretty cool stuff. Something I came across that is probably a good to know, especially if you're using Intune and Defender for Endpoint. Microsoft did a little blog post on a known issue that if you are using the Microsoft Defender for Endpoint devices report, right now you very well may see an incorrect count of number of devices that have been onboarding. So they've identified a bug that is showing the incorrect counts. They're saying it does not affect the actual onboarding or anything like that, and it's strictly a reporting bug, and they are planning to have it fixed later this year. Which, when I first read that, sounded like a long time, but we're not that far away from the end of the year. So hopefully for those of you that utilize this report, we'll see that fix pretty soon. We've talked a little bit about the upcoming Windows 11 config refresh feature that's coming through Intune. And Nicholas Alberg wrote a little post on this feature using the current Windows 11 Insider build. The config refresh feature that's coming is extremely similar to GP update that we've been used to using for years if you've managed devices in a domain join Active Directory scenario. So Nicholas does a good job here of kind of describing the feature and then what it's doing here in the background or on the client themselves, on the client itself, and how we can control that as well with a configuration profile, custom CSP. So great stuff here. Thank you for this, Nicholas. I know that we are all very much looking forward to this feature being rolled out in production here in the future. I also came across a blog post from Katie Nicholson on restricting printing to specific devices or device types. Maybe if you've had run-ins with managing printers in the past, you just want to restrict printing, period. Not allow printing at all anymore. I can tell you that I've been in that scenario myself where I've wanted to, but that's a sidebar for sure. Basically goes through here, she goes through setting up groups of printers that you want to either restrict or allow, coming up with the XML, the configuration XML for it, and then the policies that we need to put together in a custom CSP to actually assign out to our devices. So really great stuff here if this is something that you need or want to configure in your environment. A little bit of a smaller update. I think we talked a little while back that this was coming, but if you go to endpoint.microsoft.com, that URL now officially automatically redirects you to intune.microsoft.com as of this week, I believe. And then I came across a thread from our friend Sandy that I thought you would be quite interested in, Johan, just because you work so much with delivery optimization. But Sandy, you can see her tweet here, helped a customer debug a Win32 app in Intune for a couple of days, specifically the delivery optimization aspect of the Win32 app. Basically, her findings were if you think your Win32 apps are all using DO properly, that's not the case, depending on region. Some of the Win32 app download modes have switched to simple mode and simply aren't caching the content depending on the region. So I'm not signed in, so we can't see the entire thread here. But Johan, I was wondering if you had any thoughts around this.
No, I thought I've seen most regarding delivery optimization, but learning that it sometimes changes per region was new to me. I was only going to do some research on that one, but it was a great finding from Sandy there and great troubleshooting as well. But yeah, I will do some homework until next week to see if I can see anything like that, because we have, through the work with our customers, we have a lot of data available where we can see, basically track down per download where it came from and how it was delivered. And it will be it's very easy to see if there are more downloads showing up as basically not using the right mode for DO, because it will show in the download itself. Yeah, interesting read.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see what you come across as well. I mean, and for those that are interested in reading more about what's out there currently, because Sandy just posted this earlier today, and I'll make sure that we get the Twitter link posted for today's links. There's a good 8-9 subtweets to this from Sandy, where she kind of talks about her findings and what some of the possible workarounds are. So agreed, really great stuff here. And So as far as updates, that's about all I had. But Johan, I heard that you were up a little late, maybe didn't get as much sleep as you were hoping for last night.
Oh, I lost a bit of that beauty sleep for sure. I was out until the wee hours of the morning, trying to convince a SQL server to happily migrate content over to a Postgres server that I had set up. And that was more tricky than I originally thought it would be. Just finding the right ODBC driver turned out to be a journey on its own there. But I can go ahead and share a little bit of my findings there, because eventually in my where did my screen go?
There it is.
I stumbled across a tool I haven't seen before, DBeaver or Database Beaver, and there is a free version of this tool available, as well as professional versions of this tool, but it can connect pretty much any data, or a lot of different data sources together. And what I found was that it was particularly good in migrating content over from, in this case, a SQL Express database that has a 10 gig limit over to a Postgres database that does not have any limit. Basically, what the server can do, you can put in the database. The only downside of the free version is that it doesn't offer any scheduling of tasks. So you have to pay for the pro version. It was not very expensive, 20, 25 bucks a month, something like that. So not the end of the world. But I was able to do successful migrations of content over. It was pretty dang quick. As a fallback, I had played around with doing everything in PowerShell. And even though I was able to get the content over after quite a few attempts, it's much slower. It seems like doing this operation through the ODBC driver is just less fast or slower than doing a bulk operation that I, for the life of me, could not get through the ODBC driver. But that's for another evening, weekend or something to figure out. But that's what I spent my evening with. But I wanted to share that tool that I stumbled across, because I figured that one could be useful for other scenarios as well, if anyone has a database migration need left or right somewhere. But you got me curious to the thread from Sandy there, I have to say. I wrote a post for 2pint a while back on basically debugging or using the log files to track down things and how to parse them. And it didn't take long until Trevor Jones wrote a PowerShell script that assisted in that parsing. And I have a copy of that script here. I will find the link shortly. But this one allows you to not just get the log information like Sandy organized in her thread there, but also done some quite creative parsing of all the content in the messages in that log file. Whoever came up with that format didn't do it with easiness to read in mind, to put it that way. But if I have anything in this one, let's see. Just powered on. Okay, elevate myself. At least it told me about it. What can go wrong in a live demo?
It keeps things interesting, that's for sure.
Yes. Where did the script go? Is it this one? Yes, it was. Try again. Anyway, if there are any download information available in the log file, and there usually is, depending on how long your device has been online, this particular script will parse that nicely and put it out in a grid view where you can get more details about the download. So let's see if we get anything here. Yeah, a few at least. So the first comments are not that interested, but the following ones are, where you can see exactly what URL that was requested, what software that was requested, and you will even see Win32 applications showing up here if there have been any. I don't think I have any right now in this one. It looks like it updates all of them, but they will show up. And then that will show if the content came from peers or came from a server, and what type of speed and other information you got from the download job itself. So you can you can find a lot of good stuff in this. And here you see the different download modes. This is typically what you want to see, but you're in a group mode and you're sharing content to each other, whereas you do not want to see that they basically ditches that and do something else. So yeah, a good find there. Kudos to Sandy for sharing that information, and I will find that link while I'm at it. How hard can it be? Let's see. Might be this one, because I made 2 of them. No. Let's do some clever searching. Trevor. Yes, Trevor. Haha.
Got it.
There we go.
Very
so
nice.
Here is the blog post, and there is the link right here to that particular script that I showed you. Because I posted the initial one, how to get the file, and he's like, I can do this better, and he did. And that's what I love about the community. Like, all right, stepping up the game. All right. I think that was all I had in terms of news. Do we have any questions coming in?
Right.
We have a hi and welcome from Matt. Good to see you on the hour or session.
Yeah.
Any questions at all, we'll be happy to answer.
Yeah, of course, or else have to start threatening with Star Wars talk, and we could spend the next
Postgres SQL.
Yep.
Yeah, we can do that. ODBC drivers in general. Getting pretty good at them by now. Oh yeah, Matt is over in Europe this week. That's right. It's quite early. 1 a.m. That's an early morning or very late
Yes.
night.
Very impressive to join us at that hour.
That's commitment right there.
That's exactly right. Oh, all right. So Matt does have a question here. Since I started with SCCM, I have not seen any companies using CAS. So what is your opinion about CAS, and why do companies want to use it?
Well, very, very, very short answer is you shouldn't. Unless you happen to be one of the few companies in the world that has a ConfigMgr setup that has more than 150,000 clients. The whole CAS discussion comes from a time where even Microsoft were particularly not good at providing the right guidance. So even their own consultants would go to customers and say, hey, you have 10,000 clients, you need at least 2 primary sites, and then, of course, the central hierarchy on top of that. That turned out to be a bad advice. And it was so bad, so Microsoft spent the next 4 or 5 years helping customer collapsing those into single sites again. And I've been part of some of those projects. And now it's in the product. But in the beginning, you have to actually engage with those teams and help them collapse them into a single site again. So CAS or a hierarchy in config manager should be avoided at all costs, unless you happen to be more than 150,000 clients. Then that's actually the supported limit to be on a single primary site, at least for now. It doesn't mean it will stop working when you hit that limit. It means that Microsoft don't test it with more than that number of clients. So stay away. If you stumble across a customer that have it, run. No, but convince them into collapsing that into a single primary site, and ConfigMgr will work much, much better for you. I mean, right. Unless you really like troubleshooting SQL replication, then having a CAS is actually a good way to achieve that result. But if you want something that just works fairly quickly and is easy to upgrade, stay away from a CAS. That's my very humble opinion.
Keep it simple.
Yep.
Awesome. We've got another question on YouTube from Benny. There used to be a tool that I used to monitor live OSD from SCCM. It was handy to see all the advertised programs and if they are installed. Do you remember the name or have a recommendation for a tool? My first thought is that would be Trevor Jones Task Sequence Monitor.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I have a copy here I can show. Very handy little tool. So it's parsing status messages basically. But this is one of the a little bit older versions. But if you have had any deployments running recently, you can select them in here, and it will show you what that one has been doing in real time in the environment. So that's kind of nice. Very useful tool. There is nothing that prevents you from accessing that data directly yourself. You can have SQL queries that you run directly. You don't have to go through the WMI provider that the console is using. So you can easily find things like deployment times and other. Let's see what I have. Yeah, so you're just asking for the same type of information. It will spit out that information relatively quickly, depending on what you're searching for in the environment. Might not have anything for this sequence, we'll see. But while we're waiting for that one, you can also query for the same thing through for PowerShell, where you just have a SQL query that asks for the same type of information, and you do a database connection to that. And since it's PowerShell, you can start to basically massage that output and figure things out for your deployment that is hard to do in just plain SQL. But I got at least a few results on this one. And obviously these deployments here, they're downright deployments that failed. But yeah, can tap into the data a number of different ways. You also have the ConfigMgr reports, the built-in ones. They are not maybe the best user interface on, but they do have information about your different deployments, how they're going, and the progress and weekly status and whatnot. So things that you usually get asked for in deployment projects from your managers or from the coordinator of the project is basically how are we doing? How many did we deploy today? How many did we deploy last week? How long time did it take? What's our baseline? They're interested in those numbers, and it's so easy to tap into ConfigMgr to get that information out in many different ways. So, long answer to a short question.
Well, that's great stuff. Options are good.
Options is good. PowerShell is king.
Absolutely.
Always.
All right. Richard has a question over on LinkedIn. Any thoughts on patching on an isolated network, meaning no internet and no access to outside computers?
Well, first thing that comes to mind that it's a bit painful, but it's doable. Whoever asked that question is definitely not alone. Many years ago, I worked with an organization who was over in Europe responsible for some of the submarines. And apparently, when you're really deep down in an ocean somewhere, it's hard to get internet access, at least good one. So they basically have to patch when they were somewhere else. But in terms of complete offline patching, you can get WSUS to work that way if you also update agents manually or through scripts on the client side and figure out a way to get those updates in. It's always easier if at least the WSUS server or config manager can be allowed with internet access. The client doesn't need to have internet access, but it's easier if those servers have it, because otherwise you will have to download over here, copy to a USB stick, and walk over to the WSUS server, the config manager equivalent, that integration, and import those updates command line style, and then deploy them. But those are pretty much the only solution I can think of other than custom scripting to install updates, which is no fun. That will work for an offline scenario. It becomes a real challenge for all the updates that are for the built-in components in Windows. Again, if your deployment server or config manager server can be allowed internet access, that one can act as a connected cache server for that type of content too. So it will actually download on behalf of the client. So you direct your client to use the cache server. The cache server is the one with internet access. That's what's top of mind right now. I have seen some guidance over the years for like offline scenarios, but nothing recently comes to mind. I mean, it's a challenge for sure. Everything in Windows these days is kind of built for an online presence. Every time you're in a scenario where you can't, you start to stumble across into one of those edge cases where you have to go paths that are less optimal and definitely less tested.
All right.
Anything you'd like to add there, good sir?
No, I've never had the pleasure of having to be in that situation. So I was kind of looking to you for guidance on that as well, should it come up. Certainly not as easy as you said, right? As being able to just contact out to a central server or Windows Update or wherever you need to go.
Yeah.
But plenty of scenarios that might be required. So we get it. All right. We've got a question from Joseph over here on YouTube. What are your thoughts on pre-provisioning devices with autopilot and utilizing a service account and potentially running a script to rename primary users in bulk? I don't have any specific solution that I could vouch for that I've had to use myself, but there are a couple of things that I think we may have come across here on office hours that will do things like that will utilize a few different things: PowerShell, Azure Automation, Log Analytics, to rename the primary user with the last login in user, for example. And because there are several solutions, I mean, I don't want to throw any specific one out there, but that's a bulk change primary user PowerShell Google search. That should get you at least a few solutions in that regard, and then you can build off of that depending on um, what your needs are for your particular scenario. But I think that's a common thing that quite a few people are asking about. So that's out there. In terms of pre-provisioning, I think that's a perfectly good scenario for autopilot. A common scenario, not quite as common as a user-driven scenario, but that pre-provision will allow you, especially for if you have some VIP users or something like that you want to have ready to go faster with autopilot. Go through the pre-provisioning process where you download the apps and everything for them ahead of time, and then sort of seal that computer back up, and then allow them to log in. That's kind of my quick high-level thoughts on that. Anything you'd like to add there, Johan?
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Let me see. Let me share my screen. Using so the question was also regarding using a service account to do that pre-provisioning, and it's definitely doable. We're using it in some environments where we have the sequence itself during deployment basically request that to happen, and that we prepare the machine in such a way so it boots into the out-of-box experience. So as you can see, these last sections of that the sequence are actually commented out. And there is a script that in turn calls a web service on the server side that will go ahead on behalf of the client, do that type of registration using I call this a service account. It is not a service account. It's a app registration in Azure. But that particular app registration, see what I have available here. Whatever you need that one to do, you need to grant it permissions in Graph to do that type of information. This one has a little bit more permissions that you may want, because I was also using this to add machines directly into group rather than be depending on a dynamic group to evaluate, because that can actually take a few more minutes in a large tenant. But these permissions will you need to have at least a few permissions to be able to import a device object into Intune, into the autopilot service using Graph. But it can all be done fully automated using this this app registration as your service account. I prefer this over having a user account, an actual user that has the right permission or role. This I think is a more elegant way, and it's also fairly easy to use in scripts when you access it, because this information here is all you need including the Graph API secret that I stored in a text file just to not show it when I do demos. It will be bad, I think.
I think so. And then, of course, you can also use the certificates that are part of the app registrations as well.
Yeah, that works. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There are different ways to provide access to an app registration. Mm-hmm. And the beautiful thing about doing it this way is that you can add all sorts of logic where you basically loop and wait until certain areas are finished, you can confirm that your autopilot setup is actually ready for the device, because there is no point of leaving the device from the specialized pass over to out-of-box experience where the user typed in his or her username password unless the machine is actually ready. I think it's more nice to show up a little splash bar and say, hey, hold on tight. We are making sure the device is ready for you. Have some coffee. Come back in 10 minutes. And then show the login, rather than show the login real quick. They log in, it fail, and they have to retry, which you can do these days. But in the early autopilot days, that retry did room for improvement.
All right. Well, hopefully that helps, Joseph. So we got another question from Matt, circling back to the CAS. We know CAS manages sites, not workstations. How does CAS handle the communication? And how can that impact the workstation side of things? Can big, and I think he's stressing big here in all caps, companies replace that with multiple sites like primary, secondary, etc.?
I mean, technically, you can absolutely set up, if you are a really large organization, say you are 300,000 people, or say 250 for the sake of argument, you can absolutely set up two standalone primary sites and basically maintain these separately and deploy those clients separately and work with those machines from each site. Why you probably want a CAS in that scenario is because you actually want to replicate around that data across all primaries so that you can reuse deployments and whatnot in all those sites. That's the benefit of a CAS. But don't install it for if you're less than 150,000 devices. There is no benefit. It's rather the opposite. Client will still be assigned to one site, but you will see them all. You have access to them all through your ConfigMgr console.
All right. I think we've got one more here at the moment from Matt. What troubleshooting have you used with your clients before?
For CAS specifically, or I think I need to know a little bit more.
Narrow that one down a
Troubleshooting,
little.
yes, I have done. Many times.
From my perspective, if it was CAS specific, I assume that it includes a tall glass of something and some PowerShell.
Lots of coffee.
Yes, coffee is what I meant.
Sure you did.
Matt's also asking, any idea about the new issue of the October 2023 patches?
Yes, I stumbled across a few reports on virtual machines, both Hyper-V and VMware VMs, not booting up correctly after applying the patch, but that seemed to be not super widespread. Seemed to be more edge cases. I did not have any of those issues in my labs, at least for that update. There's been some interesting. I've seen this on a few clients though, where I have to reboot twice because I got the patch and I rebooted, and then after the reboot, found another patch. Thank you very much. That also required a reboot. So I saw some Twitter threads on that also going on this week. Some folks were not super excited about some changes that was done to the start menu with the update, both for Windows 10 and Windows 11, that caused some grief. Personally, I would prefer that Microsoft allowed you to opt in to such changes rather than be forced to opt out. And in this particular case, it seemed like they overwrote some of the settings that prevented it from showing, but the update itself changed that behavior. Other than that, I haven't stumbled across any real issues with the October patch.
Oh, I saw some people on the MMS Discord server as well were talking about the double reboots.
Yeah.
So
bonus.
Yeah. I think that's the one I've seen most commonly talked about over the last week.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have to check all my lab VMs this evening as well.
Is this your maintenance window in the weekend?
Yeah.
Yeah.
As long as it's not the main internet serving the house, that has to wait for the family to leave or go to bed.
Yeah.
Otherwise, my maintenance window is whenever.
That's a luxury. When you have your own lab, you can decide when to do it.
That's right. Not so much in production. My maintenance window is right now.
Yeah.
Might give a few frowny faces for feedback.
I think it was a comment one on the earlier bastard operator from a warm place that was circulating when I was in college. Basically an evil admin, a sysadmin. One of the comments was, my job is to keep the network smooth. And without the users, it's very smooth. It's like, yep. Kind of hard to argue with that point.
Yeah, I'll say.
Any other questions? We have a whopping 16 minutes at our disposal.
Yep. And as you said that, Matt had another question here. Do discovery methods create AD site boundaries when discovering devices, or is creating IP addresses and ranges a good practice? Usually we create boundaries depending on our IP ranges.
That is... No, you answer this one. I'm not capable of saying it diplomatically correct.
I would say that you are doing it correctly to use boundaries with IP ranges. And if there's one thing that I've learned from present company, IP ranges never lie to you. They always tell you the truth.
Yeah. Subnets and AD sites are kind of depending on other folks' work.
Yes.
If they are not correct, your boundaries won't be correct. And when you have overlapping boundaries in ConfigMgr, interesting thing can happen. So I definitely recommend IP ranges. If I were in charge of a team of ConfigMgr admins and I will find out they were not using IP ranges, they will be yelling.
Well said.
Well, we have our second troll for the season. I'm quite impressed. I started to show up here and there on YouTube.
Yeah.
We've been blessed so far not having too many. This one was pretty harmless. I don't know if it's a he or she, but they apparently liked the turtles. Hard to say no to that. It's like,
that's
they're
right.
Cute.
All right. So Matt was saying, do we not enable these two methods then? If not, why do we have these two options in discovery methods?
I mean, a lot of them is legacy, for sure. And there was also a time in even back in the SMS days where, or early ConfigMgr 2007 days, where there was a performance difference on using, say, subnets versus IP ranges. But those differences are long gone. But there are some organizations who like to work with it that way. They are super confident, for example, that their Active Directory team are making all the right choices and setting up the sites with the right subnets and all, and they simply want to leverage that work that has been already done rather than spinning up ranges. I know other customers, but they basically they have an Excel spreadsheet where they have all the network info. So that's their source of truth. And then they just have a PowerShell script that parses that spreadsheet and keep the boundaries up to date that way. And the network team and them have access to their spreadsheets. So they can see this is what we're doing. Another customer I work with, they had an IPAM database with info blocks in this case, where they have all the network config. And you can parse that config and make sure to replicate that into ConfigMgr. Bit of PowerShell, of course, but it's doable. These IPAM databases, they have APIs that you can tap into and ask for content. We just do an export to a CSV file and import that one and use. So it's always doable to get creative, but I like, as you said, Andrew, keep things simple. And IP ranges is simple, and they're easy to make sure that you don't overlap. And yeah, I like them. Highly recommend them.
I concur. All right. Have we tested ConfigMgr 2309, and do we recommend it in production?
The answer to the first one is yes. Do we recommend the production? No. This is where you start to upgrade your labs. You wait a month or two till you get the first hotfix for it, and it becomes general available, which usually includes a hotfix, and then production.
Mm-hmm.
It's like back in the old days, You waited until the first service pack came, then you went all in.
Yep. It's a little bit shorter timeline, though.
Much shorter, but that is because the quality of ConfigMgr in general is much better.
Yeah.
All things considered, if you think about how frequent the changes has been the last several years, there have been remarkably few major issues with a ConfigMgr upgrade. Sure, there has been bugs here and there, but the team has been responsive in dealing with it. And that's also why they have top customers. Part of that technical adoption program, early customers that are testing the new versions way before everybody else, a month, 2 months before. And these are not small environments. These are fairly large customers trying to find all these scenarios that only show up in large enterprises. Because if it works for them, if it works for a customer with 100,000 clients, yeah, it's probably going to work for one with 5,000 clients also. Where the opposite is not necessarily true. All right, any other questions? Still 9 more minutes. I don't see anyone in the chat here. I'll give it a few more seconds to...
Sounds good. Yeah, I don't see any. I don't think we missed any.
All right, then. Time to wrap up. Everyone, thank you so much for joining. Thank you for the many great questions and comments. Andrew, as usual, a pleasure. And we hope to see you all guys next week, same time. Bye for now.
All right. Thank you. Have a great rest of your week, everybody.